on May 1, 1776, a 28-year-old professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt named Adam Weishaupt started a secret society with just 5 members.
5 members? That's barely a study group. What were they called?
Initially, they called themselves the Perfectibilists.
The Perfectibilists sounds like the worst superhero team ever.
The group, soon renamed the Order of the Illuminati, was founded to promote Enlightenment ideals and oppose the power of the church and state. It lasted less than a decade before being crushed.
So it wasn't exactly a roaring success story from the start.
It's the classic startup story: disrupt the monarchy, pivot to pamphlets, then get acquired by the state police.
Despite its short life and small size, the myth of the Illuminati would explode. 2 books published in 1797 accused the group of secretly masterminding the French Revolution.
Wait, the group was already defunct for a decade by then. How could they have masterminded anything?
That's some killer posthumous marketing. Our club failed, but we'll get credit for the biggest revolution in a century.
Right, and that's where we get the Steelman case. The argument is that the Illuminati was a highly organized, secretive body with a clear agenda to infiltrate Freemasonry and use its network to spread radical Enlightenment ideas across Europe.
So they weren't just building from scratch, they were trying to co-opt an existing, larger network.
So their plan was to get popular by crashing someone else's party. Bold move.
And Weishaupt had personal motivations. As a former Jesuit, he designed the order as a machine for free thought, explicitly to counter the influence of conservative religious orders that dominated Bavarian universities and government.
A former Jesuit creating an anti-religious secret society? That feels pointed.
Nothing says I quit like starting a secret society to take down your old employers. I respect the drama.
And the society grew, selectively. From just 5 members at the start, it expanded to over 650 by 1784, including influential figures like Baron von Giege, a well-connected diplomat who basically became their head of HR, structuring the ranks and rituals.
So in 8 years, they went from a book club to 660 members. That's not exactly an army, but it's a network of influential people.
650 followers. Today, he'd be a mid-tier influencer who couldn't get you a discount code.
The structure was clever. It mimicked the Freemason lodges they were trying to infiltrate, but with its own grades: novice, Minorval, and illuminated Minorval, with higher, mystery classes reserved for the inner circle. The whole point was to gradually educate members toward a state of pure rationalism.
Educate or indoctrinate. Those mystery classes sound like a way to keep the real agenda hidden until a member was too deep to pull out.
Illuminated Minerval sounds like the final evolution of a Pokemon. I choose you!
To protect themselves, members used classical pseudonyms. Weishaupt was Spartacus, von Giege was Philo. They even used a secret calendar. Almost all their communication was done through painstakingly coded letters.
They ran a continent-spanning conspiracy through the postal service. That seems like a catastrophic operational security flaw waiting to happen.
My man called himself Spartacus. That's not a code name, that's a cry for help.
And the internal politics were just as dramatic. In 1784, everything started to unravel when Weishaupt had a major falling out with his second-in-command, Baron von Giege. Giege wanted control of the highest mystery classes, and Weishaupt refused. So Giege walked.
So the 2 architects of the society broke up because one wouldn't share the keys to the executive washroom?
The startup is imploding. The CTO just rage quit because the CEO won't give him the admin password.
Giege's departure was terrible timing. It happened just as the Bavarian state was getting increasingly paranoid. On June 22, 1784, the Elector of Bavaria, Karl Theodor, issued a general edict banning all unauthorized secret societies.
He didn't name the Illuminati directly in that first edict, did he? So it was more of a warning shot across the bow for any and all secret clubs.
This is the government equivalent of your dad saying, I don't know what you kids are doing in that basement, but I want it to stop.
Then a former member, a guy named Joseph von Utzschneider, decides to write letters to the Grand Duchess of Bavaria, spilling all the secrets he knew about the Illuminati's goals. This kicks off a full-blown moral panic inside the government.
A disgruntled ex-member. How much of what Utzschneider claimed can we verify? Was he reporting actual plans or just trying to get his old bosses in trouble?
The first rule of Secret Society Club is you do not talk about Secret Society Club. The second rule is you definitely don't write it all down for the Duchess.
The government didn't wait to find out. The crackdown escalated fast. A second edict came down in March 1785, and this one explicitly named and banned the Order of the Illuminati. Weishaupt was promptly fired from his university professorship and banished from Bavaria entirely.
So, in less than a year, they went from a general warning to dismantling the leadership. Those letters must have been incredibly alarming to the elector.
Lost his tenure and got exiled. That's a rough annual performance review.
And then things get truly cinematic. In 1785, an Illuminati courier, a man named Johann Jakob Lanz, is riding through the countryside when he's struck by lightning and killed. And when authorities search his body, they find his satchel is stuffed with secret letters and membership lists.
Hold on, he was struck by lightning? That feels a bit too convenient. Is that a confirmed historical detail or a piece of folklore that got attached to the story later?
Okay, even I have to admit that's suspicious. The universe itself apparently has a strong opinion on secret societies. Worst postal service ever.
It's a real historical account, and it was the break the government needed. Armed with the literal smoking gun from Lanz's satchel, they raided the home of a key member, Franz von Zwack, in 1786. They seized hundreds of letters, rosters, and internal documents.
And Zwack was one of Weishaupt's chief lieutenants, so raiding his house would be the equivalent of getting into the main server.
It's the 18th century version of kicking in the door and yelling, "Police search warrant," while you unplug all the computers.
Exactly. And to justify the raids and prove the threat was real, the Bavarian government did something brilliant and self-defeating. In 1787, they published the seized documents for everyone to read, under the title Some Original Writings of the Order of the Illuminati.
They published the evidence. They essentially created a user's manual for the very conspiracy they were trying to crush.
Wait, they just leaked everything? The government itself dropped the exposé? That's not a crackdown. That's a marketing campaign.
It absolutely was. The book became an unintentional bestseller. It spread the name and the core ideas of the Illuminati across Europe far more effectively than Weishaupt's secret letters ever could have. They handed the group an immortality it never earned in life.
So the government's attempt to kill the group actually created the myth. They poured gasoline on a fire they thought was out.
It's the Streisand effect, 18th century edition. You try to hide something and accidentally make it the hottest ticket in town.
And that set the stage for the conspiracy to be born in earnest. A decade later, in 1797, two hugely influential books appear almost simultaneously. First, a Scottish academic named John Robison publishes Proofs of a Conspiracy. At the same time, a French Jesuit priest, Augustin Barruel, releases his memoirs illustrating the history of Jacobinism. Both authors had been working in secret, and both reached the same shocking conclusion.
Independently, what are the odds they both land on the same fringe theory at the same time?
That's what gave it so much power. Both Robison and Barruel argued that the Illuminati had not died in 1787. They claimed it had secretly survived, gone underground, and was the hidden hand that orchestrated the entire French Revolution.
But the French Revolution started in 1789, years after the Illuminati was dismantled. They're connecting a defunct German social club to a massive French political upheaval. That's a huge leap.
So a book club that couldn't even manage its own HR department somehow ran the French Revolution from beyond the grave? Okay, sure.
All right, let's stop and separate the fact from the folklore, because this is where the timeline splits. What do we know for a fact is real?
Real. Adam Weishaupt was a real person. The Order of the Illuminati was a real, historical secret society that he founded in Bavaria, Germany, on May 1st, 1776.
So there was a guy, and he did start a club. Check.
And its goals were genuinely radical for the time. They are all laid out in the documents the government published. Weishaupt wanted to diminish the power of monarchies and the state church.
And replace them with what?
With reason. The whole point was to champion Enlightenment ideals and create a state governed by rational thought, not by dogma or royal bloodlines. Right, and it was organized. They they had a clear hierarchy, used those classical pseudonyms, and grew to several hundred influential members across Germany by the early 1780s.
So this wasn't just Weishaupt and his 5 friends in a room anymore. It was becoming a real network.
It's a D&D campaign that got way, way out of hand.
A very short-lived one. The Bavarian government did, in fact, suppress the society between 1784 and 1787, banishing Weishaupt and publishing all their internal documents. By 1788, the historical Illuminati had effectively ceased to exist.
So the official story is true? They got shut down.
The most powerful secret society in the world got crushed by the 18th century version of the Fun Police.
And this is the critical split. There is zero credible historical evidence that Weishaupt's original group survived the 1780s, let alone that they were responsible for the French Revolution a decade later.
That entire narrative comes from Robison and Barrawell's books. It's a theory they published, not a fact they discovered.
So the conspiracy is based on a bad sequel written by 2 different authors who'd never met.
What about modern groups that call themselves the Illuminati?
They have no provable lineage back to the original order. The name itself has just become a brand, a franchise for anyone claiming to possess secret knowledge.
It's like starting a band and calling it the Beatles. You can use the name, but you're not getting the royalties.
So if the real group was a short-lived historical footnote, why does this myth persist so powerfully?
Because the idea of a secret cabal of intellectuals pulling the strings provides a simple, satisfying explanation for complex, chaotic world events. It makes the chaos feel manageable.
It's the ultimate "it's not my fault" card. Didn't get that promotion? Illuminati. Your team lost the Super Bowl. Illuminati.
And the ultimate irony is that the government's own propaganda created the monster. By publishing the Illuminati seized documents to expose them as a threat, they accidentally immortalized them.
They gave the group a level of fame and influence in death that it never, ever had in life. The publication was a bestseller across Europe.
It's the greatest marketing campaign in history, and the client was already dead. Brilliant.
From there, the Illuminati just became a cultural meme. It's now shorthand for any perceived shadow government, a go-to villain for fiction.
It's everywhere. You see it in movies like Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, video games like Deus Ex, and of course, Dan Brown's novels like Angels and Demons.
It's the scriptwriter's in case of emergency break glass villain.
And that modern version, the one people talk about today, is completely unrecognizable. It gets mashed up with the Freemasons, the New World Order, sometimes even lizard people.
It bears absolutely no resemblance to that small group of 18th century Bavarian rationalists. The myth has completely swallowed its own origin story.
See, this is why we do this. If you want to know which conspiracies involve actual lizards and which are just about German dudes who were bad at paperwork, hit subscribe.
In the end, the most successful project of the Illuminati wasn't infiltrating governments or taking over the world. It was creating a story so powerful that we're still arguing about it over 200 years after the club officially disbanded.
Their true legacy wasn't their actions, but the reaction to them. The conspiracy theory is the only thing that actually survived.
They failed to change the world, but they accidentally changed how we talk about the world being changed.
Adam Weishaupt would probably be horrified that his failed academic club became the biggest conspiracy meme on the planet.
But it's the perfect example of what we see so often on this show. A good story is almost always more powerful and more lasting than the simple truth.
He'd be less horrified if he was getting royalties. I'd be demanding a cut of every movie.